Grieving families of the victims of GermanWings Flight 9525 visited an area near the scene of the crash Thursday. French authorities set up a viewing tent in a hamlet called Le Vernet for family members to look toward the area where the plane went down. For some insight on how people cope with a sudden loss like this, we're joined from Montreal by Corrie Sirota, a grief, loss, and bereavement specialist. Thank you very much for being on our program this morning, Corrie. I want to begin by asking you about the significance and the importance for families of going to that scene, that final resting place, if you will. Why is that important?
It's very important because it helps provide some sense of closure in what was clearly such a tragic type of crisis that happened.
And so will this help them in the grief process?
Absolutely. It's part of coming to terms with what happened. It's difficult to lose someone to what we might look at as a normal life cycle process. Mm-hmm. When you add in sudden death, when you add in now the circumstances around this loss, the best place they can be is really surrounded by people who have experienced a similar type of tragedy.
So they would find strength within each other.
They'll find, many of them will find comfort, support, and strength within within those that have had this similar situation versus other people who really, there's a lot of people that will try and provide support, but won't understand in the same way that the individuals who are now sharing this tragedy together. And this is why support groups work.
And I am wondering, how would you counsel someone who is aware of how their family member or their friend died? Because there could be a lot of emphasis on the knowledge that these people knew what was happening to them, so their final few minutes of life were probably spent, it was really a nightmare, in panic and in agony.
Yeah. It's normal to go to that place for them, to think about that, but it's not helpful. So I would try and help them begin to look at the person's life and the positive things that they remember, and memories. I know it's hard because it's so fresh, and there's going to be anger, and it's going to be more complicated, the grieving process, but at the same time, we can spend a lot of time focusing on what happened in the last few minutes, but that's not going to help them move forward in the grieving process.
So not helpful. That's great advice. All loss is sad. Is there something unique about losing someone under these circumstances, under these tragic circumstances?
Well, absolutely. It like I said, it's not a normal life cycle process. It was the suddenness becomes the devastation. The bereavement process can be more complicated in circumstances where it comes on so sudden and clearly so dramatic as and makes the bereaved families, the lack of control over the situation is a big factor in how they move forward and process this loss.
And there must be some anger as well.
Without question. There is often, well, initially right now, shock and numbness is what most people who are grieving will experience initially. When the circumstances around the death are unanticipated and as difficult as they have been in this situation, the sadness will come and may be there, but the anger is a very pervasive reaction to this kind of experience.
Tough days ahead for those families.